Imagine staring at a piece of meat, just rotting in the hot sun, and realizing it holds the exact same fundamental cosmic secret as a frozen glacier.
It sounds completely absurd, but yeah, that's exactly where we're going today.
Right. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are looking at a 6,000-year-old framework that claims to be, well, essentially the ultimate cheat code to reality.
And it is a dense one.
Oh, incredibly dense. The text we are diving into is a synthesized excerpt by an author named Su Feng, and it's titled Origin of the Universe. And our mission today is to guide you through what is basically a massive collision between ancient Eastern philosophy stuff you'd find in the Book of Changes or Taoism and modern physics.
Right, like quantum mechanics and Einstein's relativity.
Exactly. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt completely overwhelmed by just the sheer randomness of the universe? Like things just happen for no reason?
Well, the author's premise is that everything, from the birth of a galaxy to gravity to the literal moment you feel the biological urge to go to the bathroom.
Which we will definitely get into later. Yeah, we will. But the claim is that all of it is governed by a singular, unbroken mathematical formula. So, before we can even understand how the universe was created, we first have to understand Xu Feng's core premise, which is that the universe isn't random at all. It just looks chaotic because, well, we're basically blind to the rules.
Right, it's an incredibly ambitious text. To even begin processing how it claims the universe was created, you really have to accept that foundational worldview, that the universe is entirely devoid of randomness. We assume things are lawless simply because we haven't discovered the laws governing them yet.
And the author uses a really grounded historical comparison to make this point, which I loved. Think about chemistry before Dmitri Mendeleev.
Oh, the periodic table.
Yeah. Before Mendeleev, scientists were just looking at a chaotic pile of elements, oxygen, gold, iron, with absolutely no idea how they related to one another.
It was just random stuff to them.
Yeah. Totally random. But then Mendeleev creates the periodic table, proving that these elements follow strict, predictable mathematical relationships. He even left blank spaces in his table for elements that hadn't been discovered yet.
Because he knew exactly what their properties would be once they were found.
Exactly. So Xu Feng is arguing that the entire universe has a periodic table, and we've just forgotten how to read it.
Forgotten being the key word there, right? Because Xu Feng claims this ultimate cosmic mystery, this unified theory of everything that modern physicists are currently, tearing their hair out trying to solve, was actually mapped out 6,000 years ago.
By the ancestors of the Dragon Nation, according to the text.
Yes. The author points to ancient texts like the River Diagram, the Book of Changes, and the Yellow Emperor's Book of Internal Medicine as the actual repositories of this knowledge.
Which leads to a very humbling metaphor in the text. Xu Feng describes having this profound personal epiphany about the origins of the cosmos, and they compare it to feeling like a climber who has just endured freezing winds and the death zone to scale Mount Everest. Right. You finally reach the absolute untouched summit of human knowledge, only to look down in the snow and see that someone else's footprints are already there.
It's a striking visual.
It is. But, okay, let's unpack this, because I have to push back a little on the arrogance of that claim. I mean, comparing the categorization of chemical elements to decoding the origin of all existence is a massive leap.
Oh, absolutely.
Does finding ancient footprints on this so-called summit mean modern science is just blindly playing catch-up to ancient philosophy?
Well, what's fascinating here is that this sets up the text's entire worldview. That is precisely the paradigm shift the text demands from the reader.
How so?
Well, we are deeply conditioned by modern science to view knowledge as a forward-marching timeline. The idea that tomorrow we will inherently know more than we do today because we have better telescopes or bigger particle accelerators.
Right, the march of progress.
Exactly. But Xu Feng flips that entirely. The argument is that ultimate truth isn't something humanity is inventing or discovering for the first time. It's a primal understanding we've lost.
So it's not about looking forward.
No, it suggests that to grasp the mechanics of reality, we might need to look backward. Back to a time when humanity viewed the universe not through, fragmented scientific disciplines, but through a pure unified lens.
Okay, so if we are going to follow these ancient footprints, we have to look back to the very first step. And according to this framework, that takes place before time itself was even a concept.
The absolute beginning.
Right. The chronological journey starts in a state called Wuji. The author notes that, paleontologists estimate the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, but then asks a deceptively simple question. Where was the Earth before it was born?
The ultimate before, and the text answers that it resided in Wuji.
Wuji.
Yeah. Wuji is described as a state defying all physical categorization. It is neither inside nor outside. It's neither big nor small.
So it has no boundaries.
None. No boundaries, no time, no space, and no material. The author calls it shapeless and visionary. It's complete chaos, yet perfectly clear.
And the text relies heavily on paradoxes here to explain this. It pulls quotes from the Diamond Sutra to explain how Wuji contains absolutely nothing, yet simultaneously holds the potential for absolutely everything.
Right, like that quote, "The Buddhism is no Buddhism,"
Yes, or Tathagata says the world is not the world, so it is called the world.
which is a bit of a brain teaser.
Very much so. But the logic is that since the entire universe eventually emerged from Wuji, the ingredients must have already been there, just without form.
It really forces you to abandon the way you normally visualize empty space.
Oh, 100%. And here's where it gets really interesting, because we should actually talk about space and time here. Xu uses two distinct, pretty wild analogies to explain how they function. Let's start with time.
The meat analogy.
Yes, the rotting meat. The text argues that time is entirely generated by the physical movement of objects. So no motion means no time. And to illustrate this, Xu asks you to picture a piece of fresh meat.
Right.
If you leave it out in the hot sun, it rots in a few days because the microscopic cells are moving, they're splitting, they're reacting rapidly to the heat.
Exactly.
But if you put that exact same meat in a freezing refrigerator, it doesn't rot for months because the cold physically slows down the motion of the cells, which the author argues literally lengthens time for that object.
And if you follow that logic to its absolute extreme, if you could completely halt the physical motion of those cells, time would literally cease to exist for that meat.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is the mechanical explanation for Wuji. If a human hasn't been born, their biological cells aren't moving, so they experience no time. Before the universe was born, there was absolutely zero physical motion of any particles.
Because there were no particles.
Right. Therefore, in Ouija, time simply does not lapse.
That is wild. And the space analogy is just as counterintuitive. The author references the classic mythical novel Journey to the West, specifically when the Monkey King gets trapped inside a magical gold symbol.
Right.
No matter how much the Monkey King shrinks himself down to the size of a gnat or grows into a towering giant, the gold symbol magically shrinks or grows to match his exact dimensions.
The space inside the symbol only exists to accommodate him.
Exactly. And Xu compares this directly to Einstein's general theory of relativity, claiming space is not a static, empty box waiting to be filled with planets and stars. Space is dictated entirely by the existence of matter.
Our default assumption is usually that space is just a container, right?
Yeah, an empty room.
But Xu asserts that if you remove the physical particle, the space doesn't just sit there empty. The space itself vanishes. Space twists, it swells, and it contracts based entirely on the distribution of mass.
Wait, if matter dictates space, like the author claims Einstein proves, and Wuji has zero matter, does the box of the universe just vanish entirely?
It does. If there is no particle, space disappears. If there is no motion, time disappears. It's not an empty room where the lights are turned off. It's the absolute absence of the room itself.
It's like trying to measure the square footage of a house that hasn't even been drawn in a blueprint yet.
Exactly. It is pure, dormant potential. And this is exactly how the author connects ancient philosophy to the core of quantum mechanics.
Oh, right.
Xu argues that the foundational principle of quantum mechanics is uncertainty, precisely because time does not lapse evenly at that microscopic level. Time fluctuates based on erratic microscopic motion. In Wuji, without that motion, you have perfect stillness.
But that raises a massive mechanical problem, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, we have this perfectly shapeless, frozen, timeless, spaceless non-room of infinite potential. How do you get a swirling, dynamic universe out of that? I mean, you can't just go from absolute zero to a galaxy.
No, you can't.
The text argues it requires an accidental glitch, a spark of pure potential. And this brings us to the second stage of creation, Taiji.
Right, Taiji. So inside the chaos of Wuji, there is intangible energy. And the text suggests that this energy was moving irregularly, and eventually, by pure accident, this irregular movement aligned into a specific order at a single point.
Okay.
And this order created what the author calls a massive potential power arrow.
Xu describes this power arrow as a tornado, but they make a huge point of clarifying that this tornado has only potential power. It has zero kinetic energy because it is not physically rotating.
Right, it's just pent up.
Yeah, it's described as a locked reservoir containing billions of Pacific oceans, just waiting.
And this locked reservoir, this taiji, is what Lao Tzu referred to as the Tao and the Tao Te Ching. But Xu takes this concept a step further into basically structural physics.
How does physics play into a motionless tornado?
Well, when all this mammoth potential energy gathers at a central point, it undergoes a phase change. It alienates into a specific structure. And when that structure is complete, consciousness is born.
With a capital C?
Yes, with a capital C. The text identifies this newly awakened consciousness as the greatest creator.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Because I have to pause here. The analogy Xu uses for this awakening is really physical and frankly a bit jarring for such a cosmic concept.
You mean the biological one?
Yeah. To explain the birth of this creator, the author compares it to a fertilized biological egg.
Right.
An egg starts with no consciousness, but as it absorbs energy inside a mother's uterus and its physical structure complexifies, a conscious human suddenly wakes up.
Yes.
Xu says the universe did the exact same thing, but wait, an egg absorbing nutrients is biology. How does a completely still, non-rotating tornado of abstract energy suddenly spark a conscious creator? Isn't comparing the birth of God to a fertilized egg incredibly physical for such an abstract concept?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text is deliberately blurring the lines between biology and cosmology here. Xu doesn't view them as separate sciences. To the author, they are manifestations of the exact same underlying law. The fertilized egg analogy is meant to illustrate that consciousness is not magic. It is the ultimate byproduct of structural perfection.
So it's inevitable.
Exactly. The text compares it to heat evaporating water. Consciousness acts as the ultimate symbol of life birth. The energy fundamentally changes its nature and becomes aware.
So cosmic alarm clock goes off. And once this massive consciousness, this greatest creator, wakes up, that locked reservoir of a billion Pacific Oceans has to go somewhere.
The pressure has to release.
Right, and the resulting pressure cracks reality right down the middle. Which brings us to the fracture of reality, from polarities to trigrams.
Yes. Once the creator's consciousness is active, all that pent-up energy in Taiji begins to move around it. And this movement gives birth to the two polarities.
Yin and yang.
Exactly. This is the critical transition from intangible energy to tangible reality. It is the birth of opposition. The tangible and intangible, positive and negative, life and death. Everything we interact with is a demonstration of these two polarities.
And this is where the text takes a tonal shift that, I'm not going to lie, gave me absolute whiplash.
The bodily functions.
Yes. Xu wants to prove that physical energy moves automatically in response to consciousness. But to do this, the text goes from profound cosmic creation directly into very grounded, almost crude bodily functions, like the bladder.
It is a very direct comparison, yes.
It's incredibly direct. The author writes that just like the grand cosmos automatically reacts to the creator's will, your physical body reacts to your consciousness. When you want to look up, your head automatically raises. When your consciousness tells you to urinate, the bladder door automatically opens.
And when you desire intimacy, sexual arousal happens automatically.
Right. It's a jarring shift. Does the author literally believe the universe functions exactly like an animal's bodily impulses?
Entirely. And this is the connective tissue of the whole theory. The text argues that macrocosmic laws and microbiological laws are entirely identical.
So the stars in our biology.
Yes. For the listener, this means the forces moving the stars are the exact same forces moving your own body. There is no separation between the divine creation of the cosmos and the gritty physical reality of biology. It is all just energy responding to the pull of consciousness.
Okay, if we accept that everything is connected by this flowing energy, we have to look at how it continues to splinter, because this biological and geographical division doesn't stop at just two.
No, it multiplies.
The initial fracture into two polarities, yin and yang, splits into the four directions, north, south, east, and west, which the text also aligns with life, growth, decline, and death.
The four quadrants.
Right. And then those four splinters again into the 8 trigrams, Qian, Dui, Liz, Zen, Sim, Kangen, and Kun.
And here's where it stops being just abstract philosophy and becomes a very literal law of physics. According to Xu, these 8 directions dictate literal fate.
Yeah, the text notes how even something as simple as grass has an entirely different growth model depending purely on its geographic direction.
It applies to humans, too.
Oh, the swan example. Yeah, Xu gives the example of a person who might be struggling immensely in the East, just facing ruin and bad luck. But if that exact same person packs up and moves west, their fortunes completely reverse and the ugly duckling becomes a white swan.
It's a unified field theory of fate.
It's wild. It's almost like gravity isn't just a force pulling you toward the center of the Earth. It's a dynamic web that actively pulls on your personal luck based purely on your direction.
Exactly. But this splintering doesn't stop at 8. It multiplies into the ultimate hidden code of reality. The deep dive reaches the final stage of the universe's origin here, the permutation and combination of the 8 trigrams into 64 factors.
The ultimate periodic table of existence.
Right. The author refers to these 64 combinations as heaven's secrets. Xufeng claims that absolutely all the mysteries of the universe, the birth and death of all things, every shift in reality, are hidden in these 64 combinations.
And this is where Su Feng drops a massive, highly specific claim about human history that I am honestly highly skeptical of.
The ranking of the historical figures.
Yes, because these 64 factors control the matrix of reality, they are hidden from common people. According to the text, King Wen of Zhou didn't know all of them. Sakyamuni, the founder of Buddhism, mastered exactly half of them, and Jesus knew a few more than Sakyamuni.
Right.
Wait, the author drops a massive claim here that historical religious figures like Jesus and Sakyamuni were basically just mathematicians or hackers of these 64 cosmic factors. Are they reducing divine miracles to just, knowing the right formula of trigrams?
Well, this raises an important question about how the text views spirituality, because Yufeng would argue that it doesn't reduce miracles at all. It elevates science to the divine.
So.
To the author, a miracle is not magic. Magic implies breaking the rules of the universe. Xufeng is saying that these figures weren't breaking the rules, they were exploiting a highly advanced science. Jesus' power literally came from mastering this formula.
So it completely turns theology into physics.
Exactly. Theology is physics. The text claims that mastering this formula leads to a state with, quote, no coming, no going. The time-space ends and origin shows up.
Time-space ends.
Yeah.
That is, wow. Let's take a breath and recap the sheer epic scale of the journey we've just been on.
That's a lot to take in.
It really is. We started in the absolute shapeless nothingness of Wuji. We watched an accidental glitch create a conscious tornado of potential energy in Taiji. We saw that energy shatter reality down into polarities, directions, and eventually the 64 hidden factors that dictate everything from where grass grows to how your bladder functions to the miracles of historical figures.
It really challenges us to look at the mundane details of our lives and see the cosmic blueprint behind them.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, lingering, honestly kind of provocative thought to mull over.
Okay.
Early on, the text stated firmly that time is only generated by the physical movement of objects, like the cells of a 40-year-old man or the meat rotting in the sun.
Right, no motion means no time.
But the text also claims that if you master the 64 trigrams, you reach a state where time-space ends. So think about the biological implications of that. If you were to somehow learn and master all 64 of those cosmic factors, would your cells physically stop moving?
That is the ultimate paradox here.
Right. Does achieving ultimate wisdom literally stop time for the observer? Does enlightenment just freeze you biologically? It's something to think about. We encourage you to look for the hidden order in your own life this week. Try to spot those footprints on the mountain. We'll leave you to ponder your own place among the 64 cosmic factors.